Hey guys, welcome back to the Casual NBA Fanatic podcast. Now today's episode, we're about, a month away, I want to say, from the All-Star game. And obviously we're going to be going through our selections in general as an entire NBA fan base soon. But as of right now, in this early portion of January, I just want to go through who I would select as of right now for the game. Obviously, I'm going to quickly explain the quick logistics of what I took away from how the format's going to go. And actually why I think there's going to be a few more All-Star, like in terms of like the actual number of All-Stars will be more than usual this year, slightly. And I'll just be going through who I think deserves that All-Star slot this year and who I think will just miss out on the cusp. I have to say when doing this though, obviously the West is like significantly weaker than what you get from the Eastern Conference. And that is no like over exaggeration. Like towards the back end of like my East reserves, it tends to get a lot duller in terms of that talent. But nevertheless, it's been harder than ever to make an All-Star game. And like the actual appearances, like you talk about guys like De'Aaron Fox, so I think he's got 2 All-Stars. I think he'll miss out this year. It's very hard to rack up that onto your resume compared to what it was a few years ago. And that's just how suffocating talent is right now in the NBA. But in terms of logistics, let's hit it off. So it's a new format this year. It's kind of similar to last year, but they kind of picked, like they did that international team that included Donovan Mitchell and Trae Young last year, but they're actually designating one international team this year. They're going to have 2 US teams. I'm assuming the US teams will be 16 players, but there'll be 2 captains that get to pick those players. So 2 US teams, 1 international squad, 3 teams altogether of 8. There's no positional demands on the starting groups anymore whatsoever. So yes, you need to vote for guards and like forwards and stuff, centers. That's out the window now. And next up, like if the numbers at the end of the voting period, so they're going to vote the players regardless on if they're like 8 international players and exactly 16 US, that doesn't matter. If the voting period doesn't align with the 16-8 ratio needed for the 2 US, 1 international teams, Adam Silver will select his own addition to fill whatever gap may arise during that process. And so we could actually see more than just 24 All-Stars this year, which to me actually sounds more appealing considering just how stacked talent remains to be in the NBA in every passing year. I really hope I didn't misread that off the ESPN article that I looked at before. But also, this whole new format, it's to do with the new result of their partnership with Amazon Prime as well, who have just done an absolutely immense job. And just the collaboration, I think that has made the NBA just so much better rating-wise, and it's paid so many dividends for the NBA, that transition from TNT. And I think this format as well, I think it'll bring a subtle jump to the All-Star ratings weekend this year. I think there'll just be a bit more hype around it. I think also designating that real international feel will be really, really powerful for these players that actually want to play with a bit more patriotic pride here as well. And so basically the way my selections of the 12 from each conference stood, I came up with a ratio of 15-9. So from the 12 guys I picked from each conference, it was a 15-9 ratio. So I had 1 more international player than what the demand required. And so basically from that process, that would mean Adam Silver would eventually select another American player to add to that mix to make it 16 Americans. And so that's why I got to pick an extra player on the list. Maybe it's a little bit cheating there, maybe not. But if that's how the format's going, that's how I took to read it. So I added 1 more American on the list. I had 25 All-Stars this year. And so before I bore you guys out anymore, let's just get straight into the fun. And we'll start with my Eastern Conference starters. Because let's be honest, the East is a lot more boring than that, right? Now, again, not position-based here because there are a lot of perimeter guys, especially in my starting unit here. But I landed with my first guy, who is one of the premier MVP candidates this year. Pretty obvious choice, and he's just the guy leading the beast of the East right now by record, and that is Cade Cunningham. 26 points, 6 rebounds, 10 assists on 52% effective field goal percentage. And simply put, like, he's just a methodical, heliocentric style of star player who is just floor raising at such an incredible level for Detroit's offense. And he's just doing it at an incredible regular season level relative to the actual talent strengths that lie on Detroit's roster. And he's just a guy that mixes that like physical imposition on the game, but he also has strong athletic traits that he can always lean on. And that makes him a super sustainable mass volume shot hunter. and someone who like growing shot touch as well in that intermediate short range zone at the rim, slowly growing year by year as well in that zone. And in general, he's just one of the best mass shot creators in the NBA today. So he's my first pick for the All-Stars in the East. Next up though, I have the guy who's probably the odds-on favorite to come out of the East and hoist the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. And that's really just because he's playing for the more overall balanced roster. And he's just been leading one of the best teams in the NBA over the past few weeks. And the team that just won the NBA Cup. And so obviously that leads with Jalen Brunson. Now, Jalen Brunson has been having an unreal year, and like most stars across the league, he's getting better as well. 29 points, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists on 55% effective field goal percentage. And to me, he's just the best player out of the East by anyone not named Giannis, and anyone in that contending zone at least, in my eyes as well. And like Cade, he's the ultimate mass shot creator, just based on his abilities to actually generate those comfortable high efficiency looks for himself with such high mass volume as well. He has an untouchable blend of stop-start agility counters matched with the powerful weight distribution and the powerful strength that he brings in the half court. Very matchup resilient weapon come playoff time as well. Very good pull-up scorer as well. And just a comfortably better off-ball player than guys like Cade Cunningham anyways. And I think Jalen Brunson, from what we've seen so far, I think he's the real king of the East. And I think he was another obvious choice. So he runs the backcourt with Cade Cunningham. Next to those two, though, at my third pick, I'm going to have the guy averaging 31 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists on 55% effective field goal percentage. So slightly leveling up the efficiency here as well on the scoring piece. But also someone who's been a much better off-ball offensive impactor than the two guys I previously just listed. And this is probably the most portable actual star that I've got in this starting group for the East, and that is Tyrese Maxey, the guy who will add a second All-Star appearance to his resume, and just one of the most entertaining offensive generators that we have in the league, and one of the most powerful on and off the ball shooters that we have in the NBA by volume, efficiency, and by the different ways that he can actually convert as a literal shooter. And so I think he gets a very desperately easy nod there. And then, though it's old, my fourth guy is another guard on this list. It's positionless, remember? And I picked him over another guy that I think will cause a few rumblings here. But I know the record as well for this guy isn't incredible compared to his achievements as of last year in the regular season as a team. But I have Donovan Mitchell here just because he's been that good individually. 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists on 59% effective field goal percentage. That is crazy with the heavy lifting load that this guy's had for Cleveland this year. And again, just the amount of floor raising he's had to do this season, and just by also Mitchell's individual standards as well, they've only increased this year by efficiency and volume metrics. So that has been ultra impressive for me. The efficiency metrics, they've spiked from last year, and he's taking more advantage creating responsibilities as a passer this year. And he's the most athletically gifted shot hunting guard or wing in the Eastern Conference alone. And he's been absolutely terrific for Cleveland. And I think once Cleveland also starts to get healthy, we're going to see them actually rise as maybe the best contender out in the East, as long as Boston stay injured. And then last up on the starting unit, I know his team has fallen off a cliff over the past few months, past month and a bit. And this guy's only suited up for 20 games. I think you know who it is, though. He's by far the best player in the East in a vacuum, and that is Giannis Antetokounmpo, who, when he has played this year, he's still averaged 29, 10, and 6 on just under 66% effective field goal percentage. So definitely the best offensive version that we've seen of Giannis, stemming from the end of last year's season to also what we have seen from this year as well, just as the passing initiator that has been from the top of the key, with also the perks that you get from him as the best rim diver, the best off-ball target, I think over Wemby as well, at the rim, and just the best transition monster that we have in the NBA today. Someone who visibly gives some of the most gravitational rolling gravity as a screen that we see in the NBA. So Giannis, again, a shoe-in fit despite not playing too much. I think it's pretty obvious that he lands here. So those were the starters. Again, all obvious picks, except there's one player that I think who I had at number 6 that could have made a very good case, and for a lot of people would have been on that starting unit. And that really starts when we go through our bench group here. So first off, I had Jaylen Brown, who I thought could have been on the starting group. It was either between him and Donovan Mitchell. He's by far one of the, I'd say he was comfortably in the top 7 to 8 for the MVP candidate run at the moment. And with players dropping out of that race as well in terms of the injuries, we might see Jaylen Brown actually land a 5th or 4th spot, depending on how Boston actually come back with, like maybe they'll have that offensive surge once again. But especially when we were seeing Boston in that powerful offensive stretch just a few weeks back, that was when Jaylen was at his clear best. And he's proving just how resilient his individual offensive game is. He's averaging just under 30 points a game, 6 rebounds, 5 assists on 55% effective field goal percentage. So for a guy who we would have admitted to having a pretty low quality shot diet in terms of the efficiency scale, very, very efficient season overall as a half-court scorer. He hunts and settles for the most twos in the league, and his mid-range shot making has been all-time this season. And he hunts around 6 deep mid-ranges a game, and he's making 49% of them. And so just his matchup resilience as a player and like the value that he brings as a scorer, that has been the everlasting part of his game that has enabled him to be able to put up these numbers in Tatum's absence as the lead snake of this Boston squad. And he is no doubt has not disappointed by any means whatsoever. So he definitely deserves the all-star spot, which is the important part that he's actually on the team, obviously. I don't think, like, starting spot, you can, whatever. I don't think players get extra recognition for that starting spot. But anyways, you could interchange him with Donovan Mitchell. I wouldn't mind too much. Next up, though, at my number 7 spot for the East, I have the stat sheet stuffer Jalen Johnson here. Now, Atlanta have been very inconsistent for sure over the past few weeks, and Jalen's basic stat line production, like, I honestly pitches him as a top tier diversified impactor, which he has certainly been this season, but he hasn't been this elite MVP candidate by any means. Obviously, a lot of the physical imposition on the game does deter a bit of impact. He's not the most physically domineering player. He's just a very athletically gifted specimen, but he understands how to weaponize that little trait so well right now. 24 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists on 58% effective field goal percentage. And he's leading this Hawks team in the midst of the Trae Young dilemma at the moment as well. He's actually giving them a viable direction to lead to if they were to pivot off Trae Young. And Jalen's ability, again, like when we talk about his ability to impact the game as a little athlete, his ability to actually charge athletic-leaning team offense has given the Atlanta Hawks more life and more of an advantageous team-wide trait than any other Trae Young-led offense that we've seen in any other, like, of the past few years. That actual trait of being more athletically domineering against most teams in the league is a trait that is very valuable that they can actually lean into if they were to pivot off Trae Young. And he's been absolutely amazing this year. No doubt a lock for the game. He was the last of the locks for the Eastern Conference All-Stars. Now we're going to be heading into guys that probably could be interchanged, like depending on how you wanted to go about them, with the guys I had in my honourable mention. Now, that means moving on to our next guy, we have Karl Anthony Towns. Now, definitely a down year for the offensive juggernaut, but he's giving the 2-seeded Knicks 22 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 assists on what is a career low 54% effective field goal percentage. So he is struggling with the shot making piece, which usually is ultra efficient. But nevertheless, Towns is still one of the most talented play finishers at the center position that we've ever seen. And to be honest, this season isn't really much of an exception here. And though he hasn't been his own individual exceptional self, he's still extremely gifted compared to the rest of the selection field that we are talking about from the Eastern Conference at this All-Star pool range. And in terms of just what he actually does to impact offense in this Mike Brown system as well, the gravity is the important piece. And when he can act as some sort of a DHO fulcrum, that is very valuable. We're talking about a high-tier spot-up option still at your 5 position. And we're talking about one of the most gravitational screening options in the world, whose on-ball stuff, yes, is the only real thing that has experienced a real dip this year, but he is still ultra valuable to what New York want to do, and they are a top 3 seed in the East. So I'm giving his respect here, and he lands here on the All-Star team once again. But moving on, another first-timer that we're going to pivot to now, Jalen Duren from Detroit. 18 points, 11 rebounds on 64% effective field goal percentage Obviously, that number is very spiked up high because of his shot diet, literally just around the rim on those short hooks around the paint. And really with Jalen, he's just impressed as your traditional like big. The guy, but he's a traditional big, obviously, in terms of the shot diet and the high physicality, but in terms of just the youthful energy and the power jacked frame that also comes with plus level mobility. And he's been immensely valuable for what Detroit want to do, instilling that physicality identity in their front court as well with Isaiah Stewart. And now the All-Star respect as well kind of comes from the season that he's had for a top-seeded conference leader. I want to get that straight though, because I don't know if I'd say Jalen Duren is yet a top 30, 35 player in this league, but he does deserve an All-Star nod for the season that he has put together. And there are still so many flaws in Duren's game, and that will honestly will hold him back once he does get to the postseason. He is a pretty capped offensive fulcrum in those possessions with actually lean towards him for offensive creation. You know, he's a pretty average mismatch capitalizer by efficiency marks. You know, he's a downright bad ball handling option at your center position compared to a lot of those guys. Like we talk about, like Sabonis, your Şengün's, even like your Karl Anthony Towns, your Jokic's. But at the end of the day, though, he does what Detroit lean onto most, and that is being a physical specimen. Like I said, with Isaiah Stewart, he has completely energized the front court section of their physicality so much for Detroit as well. And he's added that skill. He's so much more comfortable as well in the low post on those possessions that they pivot towards him. And that has helped him win them multiple games on the margins at this point in time. And so I think he deserves his first All-Star nod this season. Now it's starting to get a little bit trickier now, but now I think Toronto deserved their respect. And out of their two guys that they probably arguably could have thrown up here between Ingram and Scotty Barnes, I went with Scotty Barnes. And it was pretty tough. 19 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 stocks a game on 55% effective field goal percentage. Now, again, it was a split between Ingram and Scotty as Toronto's more impactful player. But I went with Scotty Barnes just because of the diverse impact that he brings with the frame, with the physicality, that truly positionless outlook that he brings, the passing, the 4 and 5 man ball handling runs that he can offer you as well. And he's just giving Toronto so much wiggle room with their lineup selection, and his ability to thrive in this quirky setting of, you know, a ton of wings as well. It just alleviates much of the decision-making for Toronto, like the lineup decision-making for Toronto, with just the mix of just straight forwards and wings that they just throw out there. Scotty Barnes' ability to actually play that 5-man position and play it very, very well gives them a ton of wiggle room there. And that's why I think he is a little bit more valuable to what they want to do with their current identity. So I think he deserves his All-Star selection for the second time in his career. But moving on from Scotty B, we have another first-timer. And actually the last two guys that we've got to hit off, both first-timers. But I have Josh Giddey landing here. So my thing with Josh is that I don't think, obviously the season, by the time the All-Star hits, that might be 55% through the regular season, 60% through the regular season. I don't think we can forget what Josh Giddey was doing in that first 10-game span with Chicago. Like, especially that start of the year, like he was truly amazing as an offensive wizard, generating high-paced, high-efficient offensive results for a team. And again, just a true offensive magician and someone who, like, typically he needs to be in a favorable rhythm. And obviously he hasn't been in that fully too much. He's been in and out of the lineup as well with injuries. But, you know, despite not being the most athletically gifted guy on the floor as well, Josh Giddey's actual instinctual speed allows him to lead supercharged, high-pace offense just with the bullet passing velocity, but also, again, that decision-making speed in his cognitive arsenal. And that's when, like, the full court, like, transition, initiating, like, he's absolutely exceptional in that regard. And Chicago also remain a play-in team this season, despite Kobe White barely playing towards the start of the season as well. And Giddey has kept a near triple-double average at this point in time, up to now. 19 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists on what is a respectable 53% effective field goal percentage. And with Giddey as well, it's just the growth that he's shown as a mismatch hunter. That's grown very incrementally year by year, but the volume has spiked a little bit more so this year, especially with the growth in volume as that soft touch, short range shot hunter and shot maker at this point in time. And that is very valuable. And then, so I just think he deserves his first spot as of right now. Obviously, one of the guys I have in my honourable mentions list could realistically overtake him with the pace that Giddey is maybe slightly declining at this point in time in terms of the All-Star campaign. But at this point in time, I don't think many guys could have led the offensive results that Giddey has with the amount of responsibilities that are laid upon him. Now, my last spot, I have another first-timer. Someone who's actually been in the mix of all-star conversations quite a bit in his career and recently as well, but I had Norman Powell from Miami. So Norman Powell, someone who just as of now, I'm extremely impressed with just in terms of how he's helped cultivate Miami's new offensive style. Like we're talking about an exceptional transition spacer, someone who's scoring the ball 1.36 points per possession at 69% effective field goal percentage on 5 transition possessions a game. And out of the top 10 transition scorers by volume as well, Norman Powell ranks as the most efficient in the NBA as it stands right now. And what Norman Powell's actually brought to Miami has just been ultra valuable, again, for what they've wanted to do. We're talking about a strong closeout attacker with just the frame that he brings, but also the explosive power he can throw behind that. Ton of strength as well. Extraordinary gravity in handoff actions as well, and someone who offers screening value that is invaluable and just so, like, I just don't think the diverse stats will really do him justice when you're comparing him to the guys that I did take him over. But the literal value of his ability to actually play finish at the level that he's doing right now has actually allowed Miami to lean towards this system of like generating so many looks, just settling for such high degree of difficulty of looks and just leaning onto like the high shot totals to actually bury out their offense. And basically, obviously, like the defensive stuff also isn't glamoring. The rebounding and assist totals as such don't look picture perfect on paper, but he's actually been one of the most valuable play finishers in the NBA. And for a team that actually struggles with the genuine part of actual play finishing and literal shot making, they don't struggle with creating great looks. They struggle with actually converting on them. Just Powell's value has been just so instrumental for that offense, who do take the most shots in the NBA despite having quite limited personnel overall. So I'm taking Norman Powell here out of respect as of right now. And with those 12, that led 5 honourable mentions that had to leave the list and couldn't make it. And I believe these guys would have missed out if the selections were made today, but who knows, time may be able to tell because some of these guys are playing some really high-level basketball as of recently. But I'm not really going to explain them too much just because we need to skim through these. But Pascal Siakam, Brandon Ingram, Evan Mobley, Franz Wagner, and Michael Porter Jr. were my 5 main honourable mentions that did miss out on the cut for this year. But let's quickly move on to the West starters. I think I've been going for about 23 minutes now, so we'll try to hit these off with a bit more speed. Now, it's pretty obvious for most of the starting group for the Western Conference. I think you can kind of guess who's going to be making. I think it's pretty clear with just how much more stacked the West is as well in comparison to the East. But we'll go with the guards that do lay in my starting unit. Again, it's not positional by any means, but we'll start off with the perimeter guys. And so that means first off, obviously we're going to be going with the dude that's probably going to be headlining this conference of All-Stars, and that was SGA starting us off with number 1. SGA just keeps improving every single year at just a rate that typically takes stars years to grow. And when I mean that, I mean like the jumps that he's making year by year, just so fast for someone who already is on top of the basketball world. And like the leap that he made from last year even to this year is a leap that would have taken typical stars maybe 3 years to make that sort of jump. He's averaging 32 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists on just under 62% effective field goal percentage. And you can really tell the gap between Shea and anyone that we listed from the East from those perimeter high volume scorers anyways. We're talking about a guy with 56, 42, 89 splits as a 6'6" point guard who lives off mostly pull-ups. And so basically he's just unguardable at this point in time. Like there's nothing else you can really say. And the fact that he's still averaging less than 2 turnovers a game. And like, so basically you're getting the most sustainable offensive perimeter creator once again this season, but you're also getting him at an efficiency level that we really haven't seen ever before from anyone of his archetype. So again, easy pick. And I think he'll probably be the captain for me to be completely honest with you. He's leading the best team in the conference. And Like, obviously, the gap between him and Jokic individually, yes, you can argue is pretty substantial. And you're leading the best team in the conference. Jokic is going to be missing some games. I'm taking SGA as my captain in the Western Conference All-Stars pool. Now, next, I have the league leader in scoring, Luka Doncic. About 33 points a game, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists on about 53% effective field goal percentage. And so against SGA, it's obviously a massive drop-off in efficiency as well, nearly 10% effective field goal percentage markers. Like, obviously as well, like when we are talking about a self-creator, we're talking about a guy that wills his points. Like, that's why he's the league leader in totals. He's leaning towards this ultra-aggressive, pull-up heavy offense as well, especially over the past few weeks as well, since he's come back from Slovenia. He's taking just under 11 threes a game. So that's a career high in that regard as well. And he's only making 32% of them. And obviously, like, the short range scoring has definitely come back in a huge way. And that's been the big question mark that we had for Luka. And that's what made him so utterly dominant in 2024. And that has come back. He's looking more sharpened in terms of his physique and the agility, athleticism as well. And just that touch has grown up again as well. And like, the dude's making 90% of his shots when he gets to the rim. And he's making 53% on those short range looks, which last year was only 48%. And that was a bit higher as well before he left to go to Slovenia for the birth of his child as well. And so the overall offensive initiation has been inconsistent, but it's been better than it was last year. And obviously that the inconsistency stems from the shot making variance, the poor decisions, the lazy forced reads that he can frequently make, which jeopardizes LA's biggest flaw, which is their defensive athleticism in transition. He's averaging 4.5 turnovers a game. That mark has to come down if he really wants to re-enter that echelon of a top 3 player in this league. And that's a career high of turnovers again. But nevertheless, though, Luka, no doubt, is a lock for the All-Star game. And for me, he is a starter for the All-Star game pretty clearly with what he's done with LA, who actually do get pretty underrated in these contender talks at this point in time. They're still probably an 8 to 9 contender for me at this point in time. And big part of that is what Luke has been able to do as one of the best heliocentric offensive stars still in the NBA. Next up, though, the last guard that we've got on here, we have Steph Curry, who enters as a starter again. He's missed a few games, but he's still averaging 29 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists on 59% effective field goal percentage. And he's the league leader in both threes attempted and threes made per game. And he's still churning out super high impact numbers with his offensive gravity and the conditioning that he still brings at age 37. In the games he's played, the Warriors are 14-11, and he's still giving them a 119 offensive rating when he's on the floor to a team with very limited offensive personnel when he does play on the floor. And that's in the big scheme of things as well. And he is still ultra valuable, and he'll still get 1,000% of the votes needed to actually boost him into a starting spot. So I reckon this was a no-brainer to have him as a starter once again. And I think he's been just that impressive. And I think when he plays, honestly, when I'm seeing Steph right now, especially with Tatum's injury, I'm still seeing maybe the 5th best player in the NBA. And to be saying that at age 37 and with everything that he's doing now, I think a starting spot is a pretty simple ask for him. Now, next up though, we're moving on with Nikola Jokic. Now, obviously, I know he's injured, and that doesn't really matter though. Like, he'll still get voted as an all-star. There's not much to say with Jokic. He's just the best player in the world by a large gap. 30 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists on 67% effective field goal percentage. By far the best of any market that we're going to list on today. Better than guys like Giannis, Jalen Duren, whatever you want. And it's just pretty comical what Jokic was doing at this point in time. And he's leading the league in rebounds and assists, giving you the most efficient 30 points a night. And he's just clearly the most glamorous offensive player that the game has ever seen once again this year. So no decision there really at all. So he slots in as another starter. And then my last all-star starter was Victor Wembanyama. Again, votes-wise, he'll get it pretty easily in my opinion. And then also to me as well, I think when we are watching Victor this year, the only thing that keeps him from being a certified top 5 player in the league is the offensive imposition that he can bring on ball. I think we're seeing a 6 to 8 range player in this league right now in terms of the impact-wise that what he's bringing to the game. And also just as an entertainment product as well, he's also just the best defender in the NBA just by value of that deterring presence that he continues to bring. And that's why he does land here as a sure bet starter by by his popularity, but also just what we see from what he does on the NBA floor. And the stats for Victor as well, like, I just want to hear them again for myself. They're not absurdly obscene, but when you actually watch his presence on the floor and how much gravity he brings on both ends of the floor, it's pretty easy to see why he might be the 6th best player in the world, if not higher from most people. It probably is too, but he's averaging 24 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 blocks. But he's playing just under 30 minutes a game right now on a career high 57% effective field goal percentage. The guy's growing, and he's growing into a all-star starter, in my opinion, right now. Now let's move on to the West reserves. And we'll start with someone who I reckon many would have preferred starting over Steph, to be honest with you, and that is Anthony Edwards. And I don't really have a problem with people thinking that. Anthony Edwards has been absolutely amazing this year. This is by far his best season once again, and he's just really leaning into that diversified shot palette. It's no longer just threes and rim pressure drives directly to the rim. It's a lot more of that deep, short range, mid-range shot making, but also just the long middies that he's also selling for as well. It makes him a bit more diversified, a bit more matchup resilient as well. And I love that. I think you're going to see those dividends really pay off when it comes playoff time as well. So basically, less threes, more attempts within that, anywhere from within the arc section of the floor. So we're talking about long middies, short range looks, and also more looks directly at the rim too, which is the best part that you're getting from that lower down in threes attempted. And whatever it is, like within the arc, like Ant's gotten better at it this year in terms of the efficiency markers and volume. And it's made him a more complete scoring force, one of the most complete scoring forces that we have in the NBA. 29 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists on 58% effective field goal percentage. So he's still the same super resilient scoring force that we've been used to over the past few years. So he's the second last lock that I had for the Western Conference All-Stars. But for my last complete lock that I had for the All-Stars, this is a guy that for me is non-negotiable to be on the All-Star team. I actually have Kevin Durant here. Again, stats aren't as glamorous by like the production, basic production stats as the other guys. I think it's pretty effortless why this guy is a lock. Like whether or not you do consider him a lock or not, for me, he's just been Houston's most important player, and just the gravity, the maturity that he's bringing, the ball handling value that he continues to bring, the experience as that basic advantage creator for Houston. It's enabled Houston's offense to create the 4th most catch and shoot like sequences and the best for like the top 5 efficiency catch and shoot team in the league. Just the quality of open threes that they are creating through their offense, stemming from KD's initial advantage creation and ball handling value in that pick and roll with Şengün, that leads to those wide open 3 sequences. That has been ultra valuable, and that's why I actually believe in Houston as clearly a top 4 to 5 contender in this league right now from what we have seen. And yes, KD can still be prone to physicality, and there is still a lack of rim pressure in his on-ball game compared to the other 1As across the league. And he can be thrown off as a passer as well, especially by those raging doubles and blitzes that can happen, especially towards crunch time of games. But he's still giving you an effortless 25, 5, and 5 on a super pretty 52, 43, 90 splits. And that rounds to 59% effective field goal percentage. And he's just ultra efficient scoring. And that ultra efficient scoring scope itself just remains so effortless at age 37. I think he's a shoe-in fit, and he is a lock, unlike the other guys I'm going to be listing off as well. Now, moving on from the guys that I consider non-debatable all-stars out of the West, we're going to be going with my 8th pick, and this really isn't as much in order or not, really, but I have Chet Holmgren here landing in the all-stars, and he is pretty comfortably an all-star in my opinion. Obviously, he's more on the cusp compared to who else we've named so far, but he's pretty clearly in this range for me. If we listed guys like Jalen Duren and Karl Anthony Towns, I think you can't not name Chet Holmgren. He's been the 2nd best player currently on the leading contending favorite and the best team in the NBA. And he's a guy who's improved in literally everything that he does on the offensive floor, which has been the major thing that OKC have needed out of either J-Dub or Chet Holmgren. He's giving you 18 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks a game on an obscene 63% effective field goal percentage for a guy who settles a lot on the perimeter as a pretty thin-built center. That came out to 57 39-79 splits. He's one of the most efficient drivers of the basketball that we have in the NBA today right now. And he's settling subtly less from three, despite him cashing in more threes this season at a higher clip. And to me, that's valuable for when you get to the postseason as well. Again, like what we spoke about with Ant, diversifying the shot palette, making yourself more dangerous as an overall scoring option. His rim finishing has been elite. 79% at the rim as a pretty thin-built big man as well. So his touch is just so excellent right now. He's making 51% of his looks in that short range as well. Again, very, very efficient considering his build. He's making 47% of his long middies, albeit pretty low volume though. But he's also increased his unassisted field goal percentage, and he's done it pretty substantially as well. I mean, last year he was making 1.4 unassisted field goals a game. That's jumped up to now 2 a game as well. That's a legitimate leap. And though the contesting metrics defensively aren't as insane as they were last year, Chet Holmgren's defensive rating this year has leaped 5 points more from last year, and he remains to be this absurdly versatile rim protecting force and a sure bet to finish in the top 3 for the DPOY candidate voting at the end of the year, especially with how he's captained OKC's defense this year. Now, moving on to another young fulcrum in the league, so just another young big man. We're talking about KD's running mate and one of the best offensive anchors in the NBA today, Alperen Sengun. 23 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists with 2.5 stocks per game on a decently respectable 53% effective field goal percentage. I say decently respectable only because he is a big man as well. He's a guy that does like a lot of those elbow and post touches, obviously, but still an enormous and physically disturbing post big man, someone who understands how to brutally battle for those release point windows out of the post better than basically anyone else in the NBA. He's a guy that's settling for more threes this year, which isn't a bad thing as well, considering it was a near non-factor last year. I don't mind the settling as well. You need to diversify yourself, especially in a Houston personnel mix that sometimes at the start of the season we would have been doubting offensively. But we're talking about the guys also settling for deeper middies this year as well. And to his fairness though, all of that is satisfied because he's actually cashing them in at a higher clip this year. He's obviously put in the work over the offseason. And what we saw at the start of the year, though it's not as glamorous as what we saw in Game 1 against OKC on opening night, a lot of the actual shot polish and shot touch on that, especially the catch and shoot looks, they've all improved this season, and that has made him a much more dangerous offensive fulcrum this season. Allows him to create that extra driving momentum as well when players have to respect the gravity that he is bringing to. Offers him just another outlet of literal value on the floor, especially as a screener. That's what makes him a lot better this year. And the big thing with Sengun, like we can talk about, yes, the pull-up shooting might be a tad more dangerous in like just by the eye test. We can talk about the three-point shooting growing better as well. The basics production totals gaining more momentum. But he's the biggest question mark that we had about Sengun entering this season was him, like as a designated offensive juggernaut, the biggest question mark was the shot touch being pretty raw as of last season, especially when we are considering him and comparing him to other all-star post-shot creators as well, like your Sabonis's, like your Jokic's. The actual shot touch from those hook shots from the short mid-range from at the like literally at the rim was substantially lower than both of those guys. But all those markers have increased quite steadily this year as well, and now that he is in year 5. And so just with how Houston also look like a top 5 championship contender in a vacuum, I'll take Sengun for All-Star this year by all the improvements that he's made to his offensive game this year. Now after Sengun though, another pick that I'm actually pretty comfortable with the next 2 picks. I've got 3 more to come, but these next 2 I'm actually pretty comfortable with. But I have Devin Booker here, and it's really just out of respect for what D Book has actually been able to do for Phoenix, considering just the amount they've actually won with their roster personnel. Yes, Phoenix are well coached. Yes, they're well principled, and a majority of, the overall praise should be going to their role players, just being able to outplay their actual roles. But Devin Booker has returned in a big way from last year in terms of actually contributing to a winning basketball team. He's averaging 26 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists on 50% effective field goal percentage. He lives on one of the toughest shot darts that you'll find in the league. But with Booker, though, it's more, for me, what makes me more comfortable with what he's doing as an offensive 1A It's the fact that he's attacking for those short-range jumpers and dialing down the deep pull-up tendencies that he has from three. And he's converting around that short-range zone much better as well this season as well. And that just gives me more hope for what he may be able to do as that offensive lead engine when it comes to playoff time, especially when he is more of that score-leaning player instead of the table-set-leaning offensive generator. And with the relatively average surrounding personnel around Devin Booker compared to the other teams in the Western Conference, I just think Booker has done as much as you could ask for from a floor-raising perspective. He's a very good ceiling raiser in a good scenario, in my opinion, but the floor raising has also been on display with Phoenix this year, and they're sitting quite comfortably in the play-in zone, and that in its own right is an achievement for Devin Booker, and why I'll take him as an all-star if they were selected today. Now, after Devin Booker, again, it's tricky, but I'm pretty comfortable with my next pick. I've got Jamal Murray here making his first all-star selection, and I have him here pretty comfortably because the fact that Denver looked like a true top-tier contender. Again, in a vacuum as well, they're not the second seed. That belongs to San Antonio. They're pretty clearly the second best contender when you look at playoff type of basketball, that playoff scenery. I don't know if San Antonio will be able to match to like Denver do with the experience and the maturity. But also with Jamal, like he's absolutely excelling to the max next to Nikola Jokic. Like we talk about Nikola Jokic making these improvements every year, but the leap that Jamal Murray has made from last year to this year, and he's completely matched that improvement scale for sure. And that is why Denver looks so deadly this season. Obviously, their talent personnel looks like the best that we've seen in the Jokic era. But Jamal Murray's improvement alone might be the most valuable addition that they are getting this season. Now, we're talking about the most efficient pull-up three-point shooter in the NBA. He's making 47% of his pull-up threes. That is unbelievable stuff. And for aggregate pull-up efficiency as well, he only ranks behind SGA in terms of overall pull-up shooting efficiency. He's shooting the ball at 57% effective field goal percentage on pull-ups alone. And he's giving Denver 25, 5, and 7 on 58% effective field goal percentage. And he's just this super polished, like shot maker right now. And everything's just so mechanical, whether it's the jump shooting, the balance, the comfort, the shape that he's in actually hunting shots, snaking pick and rolls with this athleticism, but also just the strength as well to create that physical separation. And he's just giving Denver that extra ounce of an efficiency boost. And he's been so incredible this year. I don't think there's really any questions that Jamal deserves to be in the All-Star game. He's not a lock by like any means as such, but he does deserve his first All-Star nod with the work that he's put in and the work that he's completed for Denver this year. Now for my last spot, I'm sorry, but this is where I'll probably lose a bit of respect here. But then again, this is the time I think of a certain player's career where we just have to give our flowers for what is ultimately a fan-voted game and from what we want to see as fans. And so with that, I'd love to see LeBron James again in this run. I don't really care too much about the stats, to be honest with you. Like, I'll give them to you. 20 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 55% effective field goal percentage. So he's still this super high-level player in general, but he's also still finding his groove again as well. And he's a star that's been asked to fill in the gaps and shortcomings of the two co-stars he's paired with. I think LeBron James in a vacuum, you could very much argue, to be honest, he's still a better basketball player than Austin Reeves. Before the season started, before we saw the extra work Luka put in, honestly, LeBron was toe-to-toe with Luka in terms of the value perspective for me as what we saw at the end of last season. And I think right now, when he's trying to find his groove again, he's actually asked of a different role where there are more backline defensive responsibilities, there are more rebounding responsibilities, in theory, placed upon him. And I just think he's been still pretty good this year. And like structurally as well, from what LA's actual roster needs, like Austin and Luka, they desperately need the ball in their hands for this combination of Luka, LeBron, and Austin to actually work. And that's because Luka and Austin aren't the same off-ball players that LeBron can be in any sort of offensive system. So LeBron doesn't have any choice. Stick aside from the basic like stat production. Yes, he doesn't deserve an All-Star. He hasn't even played enough. I'd give him my respect here. I don't really think there is much explanation needed behind that. It's more of a nostalgic perspective. Another All-Star to LeBron's resume, I think would be a shame to deny him at age 41 and how much he's still giving the league, how much he's still committing to the game as still the most marketable face of the NBA just by sheer recognition value. So I'd like to see LeBron in the All-Star game, but obviously that means that I had to leave off at least one name, one All-Star that probably did deserve a nod on this list over LeBron, just in terms of how they would be playing. And obviously I did, but with how the names went, I did land with a ratio of 15-9 and not the 16-8 ratio needed to fill in the international and 2 USA teams needed. So acting as Adam Silver now, I'm going to be picking another guy to add, and it's going to be from the West, and it's going to be an American. So I'm sorry, Denny and Larry Markkinen, even though they were in my honorable mentions, they won't be able to make it. But out of the next three guys, either Austin Reeves, who I think will most likely be put in if that chance arose as well, just with the actual media fan base voting for him. And also he's just been exceptional this year as well. And you could easily argue him over the guys that I did actually put above him. But also James Harden and Kawhi Leonard as well as the other American West honorable mentions I thought deserve a massive nod here. And for me, I'm sorry, James, but it was between Kawhi and Austin Reeves. But out of respect, like I did for LeBron, for the two components though, just the fact that I'd love to see a healthy Kawhi again in one last All-Star campaign, considering it probably will be his last one. He's going to be 35 next season anyways. But also just the fact that I just believe Kawhi in a vacuum is still a more talented and proven basketball player when you look at like a more portable perspective as well, an offensive diversity standpoint. And just the fact that Kawhi is averaging the most that he's ever had in any season, I'll take Kawhi over Austin if this chance ever arose, just from what we've seen from Kawhi up until this point in time. 28 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists with 2.8 stocks on 57% effective field goal percentage. And he's the third most efficient pull-up jump shooter in the NBA as it stands today. This is the most points that Kawhi's ever averaged in his career, and he's 34 years old. That's impressive in its own right. And he's been ultra valuable to what the Clippers have wanted to do when he's on the floor. He still gives you a 118 offensive rating. It's because everything is so mechanical, methodical, muscle memory established in his game. He's a +8 per 100%. He's a +8 per 100 possessions per cleaning the glass. And defensively as well, he's still just a pest with superior physicality, athletic, rangy frame advantages when he is defending in isolation. That means he can still disturb and disrupt anyone's separation creation rhythm. Still a great basketball player by any means, and with what he's done with the Clippers, easily trying to will them back into some sort of a play-in scope as well with the 50 and 40 pace that we saw in the last few nights. I'll anticipate as well that he'll keep up the Clippers' hunt for a 7-8 seed too. I don't think they're that bad of a basketball team by talent. And to me, just the way that Kawhi's been playing may not be necessarily as impressive as what Austin has done this season. They've played the same amount of games, but I just think he's a better basketball player overall still. And I'd love to see him suit up for one more run in the All-Star game. And so that finishes my list off. You guys might not agree with how I kind of ranked it, especially towards the end of the West. But just to recap, my All-Stars, as of right now, start of January, for the 2026 NBA All-Star Game, I had Cade Cunningham, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, Giannis Antetokounmpo starting in the East. My bench reserves for the Eastern Conference, I had Jaylen Brown, Jalen Johnson, Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Duren, Scotty Barnes, Josh Giddey, and Norman Powell. Then moving on to my West, again, a little bit more stacked here, but my West pick starting group was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic, Steph Curry, Victor Wembanyama, and Nikola Jokic. And my reserves for that front, Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant, Chet Holmgren, Alperen Şengün, Devin Booker, LeBron James, and Jamal Murray. And that left an international team that I think will suit up. I think we're going to have 9 players on the international team, just with the way I voted as of today. That would mean SGA, Luka, Giannis, Wemby, Jokic as your starters. Then you have Jamal Murray, Alperen Şengün, Josh Giddey, Karl Anthony Towns make up that international squad. Now, this was a ton of fun to make. I've been talking for nearly 50 minutes now. This is a lot of fun to make, and I have no doubt that my votes will change over the next month alone. But as of right now, at the start of January, this is how and who I would have voted for this year's All-Star campaign. Thank you guys for listening. I'll catch you guys in the next episode.